Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PIH show. My name is Dr. Angie Sadeghi. I'm a board-certified gastroenterologist and practice in Newport Beach. I am so excited to talk to Liz today, our guest. But let me stop here and let everyone else introduce themselves too.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Angie. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our show. I am Carolina Schneider, a registered dietitian with a master's degree in nutrition, and I am an expert in plant-based nutrition. So excited to be here today.
All right, and I'm Sawyer Hoffman, and I am a bar licensed attorney, but I'm also a fitness professional. So I also health coach and fitness coach people through their fitness journeys. And I'm excited to weigh in on this today with you, Liz. And just as a disclaimer, this is not medical or specific advice. We're really going to be educating about generalized practices that are going to be helpful to anybody with similar conditions, but it's not individualized and it's not prescriptive in nature. Cool. All right, so let's get started. Angie, do you want...
Hi, Liz.
Hi.
I can't thank you enough for joining us and sharing your story, because I know that it's probably going to help so many other people. And in the interim, I'm excited to share your story and perhaps use this opportunity to teach a little bit about whatever condition that you may have. And, you know, the goal is to have some fun and learn some science. How's that?
Good. Yes.
So Liz, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm 29. I'm born and raised in Arizona. I've been living here for a little bit, and I am a master's student right now for counseling and just on the journey of life.
Wonderful.
Amazing.
You're doing your master's. That's awesome. Where at?
At the U of A.
Oh my God, that's admirable. I love that. What made you want to do that?
Oh man, that's a long-winded answer, but in short, I've just watched a lot of people struggle in my life with their mental health, and really wanting to be able to be there for someone and kind of emphasize that you're not alone, and to try to get rid of the stigmatism that revolves around mental health and kind of
for sure.
knock it to the ground.
Do you agree that we definitely don't have enough mental health specialists in this country?
Oh, 100%. There's a huge lack.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, Liz, I think if you could tell us a little bit about your health journey, just so everyone who is watching is familiar with what you're going through and sort of your health challenges that we're here to help you with today. If you could just give us a little brief, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. So around 16, I was diagnosed with celiac disease. I'd always had stomach problems growing up. I always had weight issues growing up, and I just couldn't really explain it. I never had the energy that other kids had on the playground and things like that. And when I was finally diagnosed, it made sense. It all pieced together, and kind of started my journey from there. And it was rough back then because there wasn't like this gluten-free phenomenon going on. You know, it was rice bread that crumbled in your mouth and you halfway choked on it, and no one understood the allergy at all, and the intolerance. And so that was really hard, especially when all my friends, are eating what they want to eat, and I have to have a certain thing all the time. And then kind of as I got older, I, would have some flukes here and there with gluten. And what made it so hard is it can be something as small as my shampoo. My chapstick has to be gluten-free. I'll have reactions like that, really, really significantly. And the other problem with that is with your stomach, your serotonin and all those really lovely brain chemicals that you need to be happy reside there. And so when my gut's not happy, I really suffer from some major depression. Then the major depression sparks unhealthy eating, and it just spirals from there. And I've just really struggled with my body positivity with myself. And my weight, it's just kind of always been a challenge of me trying to find a positive outlook on myself, because I'll walk by mirrors and just be like, oh, I freaking hate that girl. Like she needs to lose weight. She's too this, she's too that, she's not this. And it's just kind of created this yo-yo effect of like doing it in a really unhealthy manner, where I just will restrict my dieting and just not eat anything because I don't like how I look, or then I am starving and then I'll just engulf like 2 pints of ice cream, and it just goes back and forth. And then I think that the helpful thing and also the challenging thing is I recently went vegetarian, which has been awesome. And I feel like I've gotten so much more energy from that. And it's made, in a way, I don't want to say dieting, but eating better for me, because there's a lot more options, and a lot of vegetarian things for the most part are gluten-free, but it's also a challenge because, you know, the fake meats and things like that are made straight from gluten. So,
Yeah, a lot
you
of them.
know, it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I'm happy to hear you found a diet or a healthy eating pattern where you're comfortable with, and you are definitely getting hopefully a lot of plant-based foods through your vegetarian diet, which are so beneficial for a lot of the symptoms that you have told us about, especially with the depression and kind of feeding your gut microbiota. And for those watching who are not familiar with this, your gut produces a lot of these hormones that Liz mentioned, right? So your gut and your brain are heavily connected. So you may have heard of the gut-brain axis and the connection there. So feeding your gut good fermentable probiotics, prebiotics, all of those is essential for keeping that healthy gut that's going to then secondarily really feed a healthy brain, right? And help you with your mental health as well. So a lot of people don't understand that connection. And with a lot of plant-based foods, right, since the fiber is what feeds the bacteria in your gut. And as you guys may know, fiber is only found in plants. Then a predominantly plant-based diet can be really helpful for that, which in turn we see a lot of benefits for mental health. So I love that you found something that you're comfortable with, and of course we can kind of dig into your diet a little bit more. But I wanted to hear from Dr. Andrews, if you could just give us, being a gastroenterologist, if you could give people watching just a little bit of a brief on celiac. And I love how Liz mentioned the shampoo and other products. People don't know that someone who actually has celiac disease, it goes beyond food, right? So it really plays a huge role on your overall life and lifestyle.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carolina. That is so true. Just a quick overview about celiac disease. Celiac disease is an autoimmune condition. And when one eats any gluten, and by the way, gluten is just a protein that is found in wheat, rye, and barley. And these types of proteins set off a cascade of inflammation by your immune system. And your immune system is trying to attack this gluten because it finds it foreign, and in the interim attacks this innocent bystander, which is your gut. Okay, so to be specific, this top part of your small bowel called the duodenum gets attacked. And what happens is celiac disease ends up changing the anatomy of the small bowel. So where you're supposed to have these nice peaks and valleys in your gut, and they're called like, there's like all these like peaks and valleys, which look like finger projections in your gut. And what they do is they increase the surface area of the duodenum, and they grab on nutrition, they grab on vitamins, they grab on like iron and vitamin K, which Carolina will talk about later. And these are essential vitamins that your body needs to thrive. What happens with celiac, when the body gets attacked, there is a war zone going on, and these peaks and valleys disappear, and these villi become blunted. And instead of looking like this, it looks like this. So there's very, very little surface area for these vitamins to get absorbed. So you start like just having diarrhea, and all of these nutrients just dump out of your bowel without getting properly absorbed. And in fact, some people can actually get constipation. So it comes with various number of symptoms, including bloating, gas, and constipation and diarrhea. You can have joint problems. You can have depression and anxiety. You could have infertility. In fact, everyone in the United States who has infertility issues should be screened for celiac disease. Celiac disease is very common. And in the old days, I'm sure, Liz, when you were a little girl back then, they didn't even screen people. Now, and you know, you may have a mom or a genetic disorder. And so your mom and dad or family may have either the gene for it or actually the disease. So what you do is, and you can get very anemic from it and things like that. And perhaps it could trigger eating disorders just because whatever reason, I'm not an eating disorder expert. I'm going to have Carolina talk about that. But, you know, all you have to do is when you get diagnosed with celiac disease, you have to avoid gluten. This is essential because it is the protein that causes this disease manifestation. It definitely has a spectrum. I've seen celiac disease patients who can have a little bit of gluten and get away with it, and they're asymptomatic. And I've had patients who can't even work in a bakery and breathe the dust from the gluten, and they have severe manifestations of the disease, even if they breathe it. Even if their little pill or capsule supplement that they're taking has a little gluten, they'll have. And in your case, even your hair dye and you know, products that you use can manifest as problems. So it's definitely, it has a spectrum, and one has to be very vigilant not to take any gluten in. But I can say some of my patients can get away with, like, say, using a shampoo that's not gluten-free. But again, there is a spectrum, and you have to talk to your doctor to know how extensive your disease is and act accordingly.
Absolutely.
Pharmacological treatment either, right? So it's just kind of like, is what it is right now.
Exactly. There are no pharmacological treatments. It's just basically dietary exclusion of gluten, which is used to be rather difficult. And I'll let Carolina talk about that. But nowadays it's getting easier. Carolina?
Yeah. By the way, Liz, if you have any questions throughout any of these, you know, times when we're talking about our area of expertise, ask questions, because we want to apply it to your life however we can.
Okay.
And if you don't know how to do that, just be like, what does that mean for me? And we'll answer that.
Okay, perfect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Liz, I'm going to ask you a few questions soon, but just to kind of dive into the gluten-free world. Yes, absolutely. Nowadays, we have a lot of gluten-free products, some better than others, right? Some don't have much nutrition and some do. Really, the tricky thing many times with gluten-free diets is that a lot of our whole grain products, like whole wheat cereals and breads, they are fortified. Even rice, they're fortified with B vitamins, which are heavily associated with energy and your hair. I know you mentioned to us, I don't think we touched on this yet live, but previously you have mentioned to us that you've experienced some hair loss and brittle nails and in sort of bad skin conditions. All of these can be associated with it, right? So as Dr. Angie mentioned, when you have celiac, your absorption of nutrients, especially if you're on having a flare up, if you've eaten some gluten, maybe accidentally, and you trigger that sort of reaction, that autoimmune reaction, it can definitely decrease your ability to absorb those nutrients, which are essential for energy and your hair and your nails, right, and your skin. So what I wanted to talk to you about is, and I know you've mentioned sort of the meat alternatives, right, being vegetarian, and I think you mentioned that because of the protein, right? So getting enough protein, also protein heavily associated with skin health and hair health. So you know, my recommendation, we can dive into your specific diet in more detail, but I truthfully believe in the power of whole foods, right? So I am not personally a huge fan of the meat alternatives. I think they have their place. You know, if you are a vegan or vegetarian and your friends are doing a barbecue and you have that the fake meat, alternative meat burger, I think that's wonderful. So you can participate in the barbecue, but it's definitely not something I recommend on a daily basis as part of your diet. I would, you know, actually focus on gluten-free protein sources that you can have, such as legumes and soybeans, right? Tofu, tempeh, edamame, which are actually the best sources of protein in a plant-based diet because they bring other benefits as well, right? Such as phytochemicals, they have fiber, they have all these great vitamins and minerals. So that would be my main recommendation for getting protein. It's really focusing on the core, like staple vegetarian items. And just so I understand, are you eating eggs and dairy as part of your diet? Okay, so actually, yeah. So you know, although we are all plant-based here, I am a realistic person, and I know this doesn't always apply to everyone. So in your case, because you already have restrictions, right? You're getting, you know, some vitamins from the egg, and you're getting your calcium and some vitamin D from the dairy. So you definitely have the opportunity to nourish your body and get plenty of nutrients through a whole food vegetarian diet in your case. So I think that's working in your advantage, is definitely focusing on one of those. And I think that the gluten-free products can be a little bit overwhelming, right? Because we never know if they're actually healthy, or are they just gluten-free, or, you know, or are they actually healthy? So again, trying to really focus on wholesome foods and not get too distracted by the gluten-free. Of course, they, you know, sometimes if you're craving a cookie or something that you can get gluten-free, that's wonderful that you have that option. But for your you know, your everyday, based on the symptoms that you described, especially with the mental health aspect, I think the more we can get of those fiber-rich, nutrient-dense foods, right? So even with celiac, we see a lot of deficiencies, such as like folate, right, which is found mainly in leafy greens, which also will provide a lot of those nutrients that you may be missing for your hair and your nails. So I think it's sort of, it sounds more difficult than it actually is. I think focusing on the broad spectrum, and I'll be more than happy after we finish the call to send you a list of foods and sort of my more specific recommendations. But for everyone watching, I think when you try to go back to the simple, right, the whole foods, how are they found naturally on Earth, right? How they grow. That's a safer bet, because you're getting that whole spectrum of vitamins that can help with all of the conditions, that the little symptoms that we talked about, that definitely add up, right? I can absolutely understand why you're feeling defeated sometimes, because you're having all these sort of complications from the celiac, the nutrient malabsorption. And again, I haven't heard your diet. I would love to hear about your diet in a second, but it could be that we're missing some of those really nutrient dense foods that are naturally gluten-free and may really help you with a lot of these conditions. So could you just touch quickly on how do you approach your gluten-free diet? Are you consuming a lot of whole foods? Are you getting a lot of the more processed items?
That's a great question. And to be honest, I'm mostly doing the processed items. Not great. But for me, I find it hard. I am drained. I don't have energy from not eating well. And then to like cook myself a meal just sounds exhausting. So then I'm like, oh, I'll just go to the alternative of something, you know, not as healthy, but it's gluten-free. So I'll eat it. And so that's kind of the trap that I've fallen into. And it's just a cyclical thing, because then I'm more exhausted and then I don't want to do all these things. And that motivation to be better with my food isn't there.
Right, absolutely, which I completely understand. And I think a lot of us can relate to the lack of time, right? Whether you're experiencing a mental disorder or just some depression, some anxiety or not. I think being busy nowadays applies to most people, and relying on convenient foods is definitely where people tend to lean towards. So I'm just going to give you some quick ideas. Of course, I know this is, we have limited time, but just some quick ideas of things that I do to help me eat well and whole foods and nutritionally dense with little time, right? So if you think about sort of when you're grocery shopping, if you're looking for produce, right? Fresh produce is wonderful, absolutely. But that's going to take you a lot more time to prep and put together, right? So if you're looking at a head of lettuce, is the head of lettuce going to sit in your fridge for the whole week because you don't want to have to go through and wash? If that's the case, there's nothing wrong with buying pre-washed greens, pre-washed salad. Probably a little bit more expensive because you're paying for that convenience, but if that's going to make you eat those foods, by all means. I do that. I personally do that. I have pre-washed spinach and greens and so on, and lettuce. Same with, you know, the other types of produce, frozen produce, actually extremely nutritious. This is a very common myth that frozen foods are not nutritious. I think people associate it with like the processed burritos and breakfast ready to eat meals, but we can get just plain frozen vegetables because they're frozen, they really keep the nutrient integrity really high. So having that, something can pop in the microwave, which is also a great cooking method. If you guys didn't know, microwave retains most of the antioxidants compared to other cooking methods. So steaming and microwaving is actually the best way to keep the vitamins and the antioxidants from veggies. So a little tip. And then, when it comes to grains, so right, you can't have gluten, but you can have whole grains, which is brown rice and quinoa, which actually has a lot of the micronutrients, which are, vitamins and minerals that you may be missing. Those foods, is it great if you can cook them from scratch? Absolutely. But you may not have time to do that, or you may just feel like so much effort. So what I do, if I can make it from scratch, great. Otherwise, I have frozen quinoa, frozen, even like cauliflower rice, microwavable brown rice and quinoa patches that I just popped in the microwave, or things like that, right? So you want to make your life easier. There's nothing wrong with buying convenient foods that are still healthy or still nutrient dense, but they did a little bit of the work for you, so it's more likely, right? Same with fruits. If you're going to buy a pineapple, it's going to sit in your counter. I think I'm the only person who buys pineapples and actually cuts the pineapple. Some people are like, how do you even cut pineapple? It's not easy, but maybe you buy just chopped pineapple, right? Maybe you have, a chopped mango, or you buy berries with something they can snack on. So it's definitely doable to eat healthy and convenient without having to rely on heavily processed foods. So next time you're grocery shopping, think about that. When you're looking, even like for tofu, for example, I have tofu that I have to cook, and I buy the tofu that's already seasoned and baked and ready to eat. Yes, does it have more salt? Probably. Does it have a lot of sugar? Probably. But it's going to make me eat tofu versus eating something else that could be less nutritious, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to have a plan B option for those foods, canned beans, canned chickpeas, just rinse it to reduce the salt, or buy it with no salt. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to cook. And this is, Liz, this is not you. This is all of my clients when they're like, I can't cook. Therefore I cannot eat healthy. Trust me, I barely cook. I'm a plant-based dietitian and I barely cook. I know I have items that I make sometimes in bulk, but I have a lot of these quick, convenient foods that you can rely on. They're still healthy and they make your life easier. So just keeping that in mind. Of course, I can send you some, more specific foods later. I don't want to take up all the time. But I really think based on the symptoms that you have described, you can truly benefit for as much wholesome foods as you can in your diet. Sorry, any questions?
No, I mean, I think that all makes sense. I think you're right. It is a challenge, but just kind of looking at the grocery store in a different light, I think will be helpful, because I have all these great grandiose ideas of what I think I can cook and what I can do, and they just sit in my fridge and go bad.
Yeah, like carrots, for example. I can't tell how many times if I buy a whole carrot, all you have to do is peel it. I don't do that. I don't know why. It's like an obstacle in my life. So I buy shredded carrots always. Nothing wrong with that. Just makes your life easier. And you also don't have to make really elaborate recipes to be healthy or to be successful at healthy eating. You can eat the plain quinoa, in your case, you can do some eggs or tofu or beans, canned beans, frozen veggies that you put in the microwave, put some sauce that you love, and that's it, right? Simple. Some people may think it's boring. I think it's delicious. It doesn't have to be anything too elaborate, right? So just don't put too much like high expectations on yourself, and that, I have to make this grand vegetarian casserole vegetable or, complex meals. You just accept that it's okay to eat more healthy, convenient items, make your life easy. And you will see, once you start eating a little bit better, if you're not expecting too much from yourself, you start feeling better. You have more energy. And then you may become more motivated. Like, okay, I feel good. I want to keep eating this way. So that's more of that on the front of the diet. And then, obviously the body image, which I would love Sawyer to touch on, it's a huge issue nowadays. It's definitely a combination of marketing, social media. There's so much out there that makes us believe we have to look a specific way to be beautiful or to be healthy. This could not be more wrong. Everyone's beautiful in their own way. Of course, we want to be healthy internally, but people look different. We're all different. Our body structure, bone.
I know Liz from high school, and she is one of the most beautiful people, like inside and out, that I know, like have met in my life. So just to let everybody know.
She is beautiful. We just said she looks like the actress, right?
Yeah, Scarlett Johansson, but she's also a really, really kind person, and I was going to touch on that when I talk too, because I think that there's a kind of personality type who just kind of tend to give, and give all their energy away instead of keeping some for themselves. But we'll get into that in a minute. Liz, do you have any questions about anything that Angie said or Carolina said?
Oh man, I mean, for the most part, it all makes sense. It's like such a breath of fresh air because you have all these like, you see those fads of like, this is what you should do for a diet and this is what you should be eating. And even, a lot of the health food packages that you can get at your doorstep, they're great, but just simple is better. And I'm realizing that as you're talking, because that's doable. That's totally doable. And this warped version of kind of what you think you need to be doing, I think is what's bogging me down and what I'm sure bogs a lot of people down.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of that self-inflicted expectation that you put upon yourself, right? If you came over and you saw what I have in my fridge, it's all already pre-washed, pre-cut. I'm busy. I like convenience. It can definitely be done, and I think once you start focusing on what works best for me, right? This is what matters. It's not what everyone else is doing. If they're making beautiful meals and they're cooking at our days, that's amazing. Invite me over to your house. I'll eat all the food you're making, but that doesn't apply to me, right? So what applies to you and what works for you, that's all that matters. You want to feel good. I know you talked to us about like just not feeling good about yourself, whether it's body image or just mentally. So you want to find what works for you, something you can sustain. Anything too drastic, it's not sustainable. You can't do it for the long term. In your case, you decided vegetarian. Wonderful. You can definitely get a lot of nutrition that way. And then, my recommendation, just to kind of wrap it up, is yes, the more you can eat whole foods, nutrient-dense foods, the better. But we are humans and life happens. If you can eat that way 80% of the time and you have 20% where you're going out with your friends and you're eating maybe some more processed foods, that's not going to cause you any significant harm if the majority of your diet is very supportive of your well-being, right? So we all have times where we eat, I eat vegan ice cream. I don't feel so great after, but we have those moments. We go out to pizza, eat vegan pizza. You have to have that joy in life. So food is nourishment, but food is also pleasure. So just keeping that in mind, it's all about, if you have a solid diet most of the time, don't worry so much about the other little things that you're doing that also, make you happy, that you may deem as, not less healthy. But now, sorry, I would love to hear from you. I know you guys touch a little bit on the body image, and I know you had a lot to say about that. So I'm going to pass the baton to you.
So many things going through my brain this whole time. Like, what do I want to focus on? What do I want to talk about? But really, I think the biggest thing, and I wanted to talk about some of the science about how exercise improves depression. But I think the most important thing for you, Liz, and having some personal insight into who you are is really to keep some energy for yourself, because I know how kind-hearted you are, and I know that you will give all your energy away, because a lot of your self-identity is about giving and being there for other people. And I think that's one of the things that I love so much about you, but it can kind of bite you in the butt when you don't save any for yourself, and then you set these high expectations of like, oh, I'm going to be so healthy. Well, that requires you to be a little selfish with some of your time, and it might be uncomfortable for you to hear that, but it's really important that you have that time that you just say, nope, can't help you with this because I have to focus on me right now. And that has to be a part of every day. So, and we've all heard that expression, you can't pour from an empty cup. So just realize that even if it feels selfish in the now, it's going to help you be a better person and show up for people, because I know that's a big part of who you are, later and continuously. So if you can kind of establish those sustainable kind of rituals and habits that you have that will take care of you and make you feel your best, then you'll be able to better serve other people, and you'll better enjoy your life, and you'll look better and feel better and all that stuff. Hopefully that makes sense.
It makes so much sense. It's almost painful. I'm like, wow, nobody's ever put it into perspective that well for me. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I just think that I mean, that's a lot of the people that I work with. They sent themselves up for failure because they give, and then they set all these high expectations for themselves at the end of the day. Like, I'm going to work out, I'm going to meal prep, I'm going to do all these things for myself. And it's like, they never get to it because they're too busy giving all their energy away. And then they beat themselves up for it at the end of the day, saying, oh, I'm so lazy. I'm like, you're the least lazy person I know. You're not lazy. You're just giving all your energy away, and you're human, so you have limitations. So being cognizant of that and prioritizing yourself and your health is going to be uncomfortable because you're going to have to take away some of the availability that you've given to people in the past. You're going to have to set some boundaries with people that you haven't had in the past. You know, somebody who is used to being able to call you at any hour of the night, you might have to be like, hey, look, I got to get my sleep, because if I don't get my sleep, I'm not going to do my workout and all this stuff. Like, they might be rubbed the wrong way by that because they're used to you just being like, I'll be there 3 a.m. I don't care. You know what I mean? So there's that. And then also some of the research I was doing about depressive symptoms, it really doesn't make a difference. I mean, they were showing that exercise does support improvement in depressive symptoms above even things like social groups and stuff like that, which is really cool. But actually, the results were similar for like aerobic and anaerobic exercise and all different kinds of exercise. So it doesn't really matter in terms of, like, if your main goal is to feel good and to like how you look. I think if you focus on whole foods, like Carolina said, and you just get out and move and make time for yourself to move because you feel better doing that, and you know that it's important for a healthy body, I think you're going to see your health just shoot up. I think it's just a matter of not guilting yourself into exercise. It's actually doing stuff that you like. And that might be hard to think of right now, but I can guarantee you've had some of the funnest times you've had in your life for doing some form of exercise. You know what I mean? Like, if you're on a bike ride with a family member, if you're doing a hike or something, there's all kinds of forms of exercise. You don't have to go to the gym to exercise.
I haven't been to the gym in maybe a year, and I love it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Carolina's saying she did like home workouts and stuff, and she does.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned. Sorry. I love that you mentioned that, because people do think that exercise is going to the gym and lifting heavy weights and being there for 4 hours a day. I used to think that. I used to make it a point to go to the gym, and I didn't love it. I'm just like, I have to go to the gym. And now, being at home all the time, I do the at-home exercises. I do them in 20 to 30 minutes. I'm done. I love them. They're fun. I'm using my whole body. I have no weight. Again, this doesn't apply to everyone, but just to give it some perspective, that really the best exercise is the type that you love, right? And it makes you feel good. Of course, you're not always waking up like, oh, I can't wait to exercise. Sometimes it takes like, oh, I'm a little tired.
That applies to all lifestyle changes, because every lifestyle you should make, it should be with the mindset of, this needs to be sustainable. It can't be something that's like, because the problem with the binging and everything is that you're saying, oh, I'm just not going to eat. Well, that's not sustainable. Like, your hormones in your body are going to be screaming at you to eat. And so you're going to go for the most calorically dense thing you're craving the most. If you can find something that you love and that is healthy for you, then just try to incorporate more of it. That includes exercise, food, everything. And I think a good way to start with that is to find people that you admire in those ways or have good habits, and then try to build off of them, have them show you how they do it, and you can create your own version as you learn. For instance, if you have a friend who's really into mountain bike riding and you're like, whoa, what's that about? You know what I mean? Just get outside of your comfort zone and find things that excite you and that you enjoy and that don't feel like work to make yourself do, or punishment. Might be a better word.
That's a better word, because I do that exactly. It's like guilt exercising. It's terrible.
You're not going to build a sustainable, healthy lifestyle if what you're doing is coming from a place of guilt and shame and feeling like you need to do better and all this stuff. No, you should be chasing things that excite you, not running from things that scare you. You know what I mean? And that's the only way I've ever found to enjoy healthy lifestyle change.
Yeah.
What do you do for movement, Liz, currently? What do you do for exercise?
I horseback ride.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really fun. I'll occasionally go for a walk with my dogs every day.
Awesome.
Sometimes I'll bike ride, but not really. And it's pretty lackluster, honestly, in the exercising world right now in my life.
Find something that excites you. I think sometimes what helps a lot of people is doing something social while you're
Yeah.
exercising.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot more fun. Like I love bringing people to the gym and just like going all out. But that if if that's not something you enjoy, then fine. Who cares? Go climbing with somebody. Go on a hike. Do
Yeah.
something
I
social.
love playing pickleball, which this might surprise you all, but I lived in Naples, Florida, where pickleball is huge, and pickleball is actually so much fun. It's not
Isn't
easy,
it?
and you're like playing. It's like
Miniature tennis.
a ping pong. Yeah, a miniature tennis or like a large scale ping pong.
Right in the middle of those
But
two sports.
right, exactly. So finding things, and I love that Sawyer mentioned that, because exercise comes in so many forms. I have clients that their exercise is to put on their favorite playlist and go around the block and just walk or jog, whatever it is, right? It doesn't have to, you don't have to time yourself on a 5K run and you need to meet. No, just moving around, doing things, playing sports, being out with friends.
Yeah, and the big thing is you might feel selfish doing something you enjoy at the opportunity of cost of helping somebody else. So if somebody calls you up and says, "Hey Liz, I need help with this," and you're like, "Oh, now's my regularly scheduled, run that I really love, or playing with my dogs, exercise time," and so you feel selfish doing something that you actually enjoy over helping somebody with something they're struggling with. And it's like, obviously sometimes situation changes, like if somebody's really in an emergency, you need to like kind of be aware of, is somebody really need me, or are they just kind of used to having me around and they can probably figure it out on their own? You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, 100%.
you got to do that kind of assessment, because there does need to be this certain level of priority on things that you love, things that are good for you, that you love.
Liz, you said you have lack of energy. Give me an idea of how bad that is.
Oh man, it's pretty bad. So I will have like a 7 to 8 hour sleep per night, and then I'll like do some stuff and wake up early in the morning, do some stuff, my animals, and then I just crawl into bed and sleep for another 3 hours. And then I get up and I don't have energy to do anything. And yeah, it's not great.
Do you just feel weak all over your body, or is it just okay?
It's a mixture of, mental exhaustion, of just feeling like that depressive state, but it's also like just a feeling of like, wow, like even walking to bring the glass to the kitchen that I just drank like feels exhausting. So it's kind of a mixture of both.
And
so
do
Liz,
you eat?
Yeah, sorry,
Dr. Angie. Do you eat in the morning? Like when you wake up and you do your thing?
I don't have an appetite in the morning. I'm usually slightly like, not nauseous, but just like, eating doesn't sound great.
Liz, I just want to make sure, okay, so with celiac disease, there are various reasons you could be tired. And I just want to make sure that you've talked to your doctor, a gastroenterologist and a primary care doctor, to make sure you're not hypothyroid, because it's commonly associated with Hashimoto. Have you been checked for hypothyroidism?
No.
So it's very important that you talk to your doctor, and they have to check anti-TPO antibodies, which is Hashimoto. It's an autoimmune thyroid, which is very commonly associated. And, just check a general TSH and free T4 just to make sure your thyroid is not low, because if your thyroid is low, that is such a quick fix to make you help, you'll get your energy back as soon as that is treated, if it is hypothyroidism. Also, if your celiac disease is not well controlled, that leads to anemia. And I have a personal question. Are you menstruating? So you're menstruating a woman, and when you have celiac disease, you don't absorb iron very well. If your celiac is not controlled, you don't absorb iron very well into your system, and you're continuing to menstruate. So you could be very anemic, which leads to fatigue as well. So, and you could be vitamin D deficient. There are various reasons that you need to see a gastroenterologist to make sure they check your antibodies to, number one, find out how well your celiac disease is controlled. And one of the most common reasons people don't do well with celiac disease inadvertent non-compliance with the diet. So they think they're gluten-free, but there's invariably something in the environment that is causing them to not be gluten-free, whether they work at a bakery, for example, and breeding the gluten, or maybe using a supplement that has gluten. And if you're an extreme case, your celiac disease may not be well controlled. They need to check antibodies to make sure of that. And so they're so it's kind of like a chicken or the egg. Like, what came first? Is it like the depression and the mental health issue that's giving you the fatigue, or is it the fatigue due to some kind of an underlying issue? The mental component is very complicated, obviously, and sometimes I'm not a mental health specialist, but I see my patients who work with their therapist. They tell me that they just had to get going. They just had to eat those whole foods Carolina was talking about, and they just have to incorporate exercise. And for the first 10 days, it's very hard because you're literally pushing yourself. And then suddenly their mental health gets better, and it just, they go into this like wonderful state where they get their energy back. But sometimes if you have, depression, you may need help. Not just with diet and exercise, but also with, therapy and perhaps sometimes pills to get you over that hump. And then you can just go on your own, So I just want to make sure that, and so Carolina, you're going to send some recipes, right? I just want Liz to, so we should do all of it together, right? So Carolina is going to send you with some recipes and some wonderful recommendations. So if you could just incorporate that component, and I'm prescribing for you to be more selfish. Based on what Sawyer says, I want you to go out of your way to be selfish. And sometimes people are shocked by that. What? You've always helped me. And you explain to them that you're going to take a hiatus and you're going to work on your health, and nobody would be mad at you. And if they are, they're just not, they don't love you as much as they should. And so perhaps just give yourself this block of time, give yourself this gift, because you're a beautiful human being and you deserve this. Give yourself like a month block time where you focus on yourself. You don't help anyone else. You're just focusing on making sure your cup is full. You're incorporating a fitness program in your life. You are seeing doctors and making sure there's no underlying etiology for how you're feeling, and all of your levels are normal. And you're bringing in the nutrition fitness component and talking to a therapist to make sure, your depression is controlled. Is that something you're willing to do?
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. I think it's always a challenge, and it's always going to be something that, we all have to do it in some way, shape, or form. At the end of the day, we're the only ones who really care for ourselves. People can care for us, but really it's our job, and we have one body. So trying to figure out how to navigate that is a lifelong commitment, which is terrifying, but good time.
But also exciting, because
Also
you're
exciting.
in control, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to just kind of go off of what Dr. Andrew said. I can't stress enough how important it is for you to get your blood work checked, because sometimes your lack of, like Dr. Andrew said, it could be a variety of things that could be causing the lack of energy. But in your head, I don't know you that well, Liz, but I can probably guess that you're blaming yourself, that you're feeling tired, and you're like, oh, I'm depressed, I feel so tired, I'm lazy, and all these with this negative thoughts of yourself, when really you could just be low in your thyroid hormones. And trust me, Liz, this is so common. I can't even tell how many clients I have that are hypothyroid. Is a very common thing. My mom has it, my mother-in-law, I probably have it too. I have to keep it checked. It's very common, and that can just kill your energy. And there is nothing that at the moment that you can do when you're blaming yourself. It's not your fault. It's your hormones, or is your iron deficiency anemia, right? Or other nutrients that may be low. So I can, and these are easy fixes, right? So thank goodness. So can't emphasize enough how important it is for you to get your blood work, what Dr. Andrew recommended for your celiac, but also your thyroid hormones, which are responsible for energy and metabolism, as well as all your other, vitamins and minerals. That is huge, because if that's the issue and that's what makes you tired, great. We can definitely help with that. You can do thyroid replacement hormones. You can just supplement with iron for a few weeks, or vitamin D. So, and then this whole time you're probably blaming yourself for feeling tired. So that could be one thing. And if it's a mental health thing, talking to a therapist, my mom always said this to me: everyone needs a therapist. We all have problems. We all have problems. Life sometimes is difficult. Talking to someone who is an expert is extremely helpful. I think everyone can benefit from it. So there's nothing wrong. There's nothing to be ashamed of. I think all of us could use a therapist. So that can definitely help, with to kind of deal with that. It's a long-term commitment to deal with the mental health. But I wanted to just, for conclusion, just touch on, I know you mentioned to us that the celiac was something that was discouraging to you. I think you mentioned when you were out with your friends that you had to, oh, I have this restriction. Nowadays, a lot of people have restrictions. I'm vegan. I am the person modifying every single item. I'm proud of it. I'm like, nope, no butter, no this, no cheese. And there is nothing to be ashamed of. I think one, your friends just want you to be happy and healthy, right? For you going in and you have an actual diagnosed condition. You're not just saying, oh, I'm going to do gluten-free because I heard it's better, which, disclaimer, no one needs to be gluten-free unless you have celiac disease. But you have an actual condition. You will experience horrible symptoms if you eat it. So this is for your health, really. There's nothing to be ashamed of. You have celiac disease, unfortunately, but fortunately that now in 2021 you have so many options. And hey, I can't have gluten. I'm allergic. I will have a reaction, and your friends would be like, great, we don't want you to have a reaction. We want you to be healthy. No shame in that. It shouldn't be discouraging. I think being vegetarian, like I mentioned earlier, you have a lot of options. If you don't need to eat gluten, if you like beer, I'm sorry, that's the only thing. But there's so many other wonderful foods that are gluten-free naturally. So just wanted to kind of touch on that. Sorry, Dr. Angie or Liz, do you have any questions for us? Anything else that you wanted to touch on that perhaps we missed, or any questions we can answer for you?
I guess my question really is like more to do with the body image aspect of it, because I think that that's a huge thing that I struggle with. And like you said, Carolina, like just the way social media portrays it and TV portrays it and all this stuff, like there's this need of like what's pretty, what's attractive, and just checking your weight on the scale every day and checking yourself in the mirror and did I lose weight, did I not, and just that comparing and then defeat and then working out because I feel guilty about it. It's just like this whole thing. Then on top of all of that is the celiac, and it's a lot, and I don't know how to find this like balance.
Yeah, I know how you feel, Liz. I went through a lot of like body dysmorphia, especially like through college, I think was like when it peaked. But I think some of the biggest things I realized along that way that helped me, and hopefully they can help you, is one, that it's not fair to compare yourself to anybody else, because they're either on, they're enhanced athletes, or they have different genetics than you, they have different lifestyles than you, and it's not really fair. And they're also taking pictures that are in the best lighting and everything, and all that. So yeah, really trying to compare yourself to somebody else is pretty much setting yourself up for failure in terms of how you're going to view yourself. The only real fair comparison is to compare yourself to who you were before. With that said, I think it can be very empowering to learn about physiology and how you can change your body composition, and what tools you can do that with. And so I think, like Carolina was saying, when it comes to learning from people who are professionals, and Angie was saying you see a therapist, all this stuff is like you can do the same thing when it comes to the kind of body that you want to create too. And so while you shouldn't be comparing yourself to anybody ever, you can still set a point and say, hey, I kind of want to try getting there and work towards it. But don't just work towards it on your own. Get somebody who knows about the anatomy and the physiology of getting to that point, right? So somebody who's an experienced trail runner or a climber or a weightlifter or something like that, you decided, hey, I want to give that a shot. Some of it's going to involve you getting outside of your comfort zone and feeling like a beginner, because that's where we all start. And go with somebody who's gonna be very vulnerable with you to the point where they're gonna share their own beginning stories. They're gonna be trying to make you feel comfortable the whole time, because that is super important. You can't, again, you cannot go into something saying, I need to do this or else I'm not good enough, and expect it to last, because then it's a
Mhm.
form of guilt and punishment. If you can go into something with somebody who's encouraging you and telling you, hey, like, yeah, I know that I used to slip up on that too, but actually when you eat more protein, this and that, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
giving you little tips along the way, encouragement along the way, and you know, a reason to feel good about yourself every point of the way. I think it's going to be that much easier for you to get there, because it's super empowering when you learn the science of it, and like, oh, I can, like, I'm not a genetic anomaly. I can actually change my body composition the way that I want to. But I think we do that. We think, like, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't build muscle. There's something wrong with me, medically or something. I need to go get checked out. And it wasn't that. It was just that I was stressing myself out so much about it and trying to figure it out all on my own, that I sabotaged myself, because I was not learning the actual science. I was just reading
Mhm.
online, trying to figure it all out myself. When it's like, that's impossible. Like, you need to you need to use the people around you. You need to use experts to help guide your journey, because otherwise you'll just kind of get stuck in the same psychological loops of like, work harder, not smarter, help
Mhm.
everybody else before yourself. All that stuff is going to just keep happening if you don't get outside your own head and
Yeah.
try some new stuff and learn from some new people.
So well
Right.
said.
And
Right.
sorry, Dr. Angie. So what I wanted to add about social media and body image, there's two routes here. One, if social media is extremely negative for you, and you find that if you're scrolling and, oh my gosh, look at this girl's body or this person's muscles, goodbye. If it's not being productive and beneficial, you don't need it. That's, I know a lot of people that take a break from social media and it's extremely
Yeah,
healthy. I've done it. We compare ourselves to, I compare myself to other dietitians, maybe not body wise, but just, oh, what are they sharing? We all do it. If it's a productive, like, in a sense, like, oh, I could be doing this differently for my business, then great, if it's productive and beneficial, but most of the times it's not. So one route is, you don't need social media, or maybe you take a break from it. The other route is finding people, and I've seen a lot of this, and I'm so happy, who are kind of going against this body image world that we live in. And you see these girls posting their before and after pictures after they, this is how I would edit my photos, and you see they look completely normal. They have cellulite, they have acne, and then they show what they do to look like a perfect, doll looking person, which is not realistic. And that's actually empowering for you to see people who are now defeating this and being like, hey, I used to be like this, but this is what I truly look like, and I'm happy with it. That's also, I've been seeing a lot of movements like that on social media.
yeah,
The editing, I mean, you can edit yourself. There's all these videos of people how they edit and they look completely different, and
yeah,
this is not real life. Look at us, we have flaws, we're humans, and I think this is the beauty. If everyone looked the same, what's the fun in that, right?
yeah.
So
You need to,
you
yeah, be looking up to people who are very real and honest about their realness, right? Saying,
Yeah.
I was there, I've been through that. You don't need to worry about it. Instead of those people who are like on social media saying, you need to work harder, you need to be better. Those people are insecure and they're trying to put other people down. So you need to like recognize
yeah,
but I was just saying,
use
like,
it constructively.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. Find people who are, social media can be very constructive. You can create a support group, right? If so it could go either way, right? You have to know how to use it in a way that's constructive. And if it's not, you don't need it. I mean, truthfully, I think if it's causing you more harm than good, then it's not helping you progress. And maybe you go back to it later when you're in a better place in your life. But that's really, most of the times they're not real, right? So just remind yourself that we're humans, you're beautiful as you are. Do you feel like you need to work out more and you want to work out more and you want to have more energy? Then by all means, like, focus, like everything your story said, find something that you love and you're passionate, and you will notice that you will start feeling better about yourself, regardless of what you look on the outside. What's important is, your internal health, and how you're feeling about yourself on the inside, and how much, give yourself respect and love. And last thing I wanted to touch on is the scale. Can't tell you how many times I tell my clients to throw the scale away. Unless, right, like if you're working towards a fitness goal, more specific, I'm sure that's helpful. But in my case as a dietitian, I don't even have a scale. I don't know how much I weigh. So many things affect your weight. So if you drink a gallon of water and you step on the scale, you're going to gain weight. So there are so many things that affect your weight. It could be your hormones. It could be even how you slept and your stress levels, your cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone. The time of the day you weigh yourself, what you ate the night before. Did you go to the bathroom? Are you constipated? You're going to weigh more, right? So the weight fluctuates so much based on so many other things that are beyond your control. So weighing yourself, it's the first thing that I tell people, forget about it. I want you to focus on how you feel. How is your skin? How is your skin health? How is your digestion? What's your energy level? How do you feel mentally? And so on, right? When I went vegan, that was why I stayed vegan, because I experienced all this great benefits. My skin was oily, had acne, and it cleared up. My digestion was horrible. I never go to the bathroom, and now it's like a thing. So this is, for me, is way more important than your weight. Whatever number it's on there, I think how you feel internally, once you start feeling better, you would notice that it doesn't matter how much you weigh. Also, muscle weighs more than fat, right? So if you start working out, you're going to gain weight from gaining muscle, and that shouldn't be a discouragement for you.
Carolina, that you just brought something up that's really important. Yeah, when I was focused on the scale, I was miserable because I was like, oh no, I'm not going the right direction. I was constantly freaking out. But then when I started focusing on something that actually excited about change, like for instance, if you're going on a run and you can run for longer, or you can go faster, or for me, it was I was lifting heavier weights in the gym. That was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. Like you stop focusing on the stuff that terrorizes you and traumatizes you every day, and you start focusing on the stuff that excites you. And that is what creates that momentum to just keep going and not worrying about the stuff that's pulling you back into unhealthy places.
It has been so much fun. Thank you so much, Liz, for sharing your story. Just wanted to thank you really from the bottom of our hearts, because your story will help so many people. And here you are giving again. But so we want to help you with some resources. So Sawyer, could you please be Liz's accountability partner for this week? If you could just do like 5 minutes of exercise per day, just get out and do something, if you could, whatever Sawyer says, because he's the fitness coach, I'm not. And Carolina, if you could send some pointers for Liz to get her started. And if you want to, later on discuss your labs, I'm here for you. But just take one day at a time. That's the most important thing. Rome wasn't built in one day. Just try to do one little thing for yourself every day. Give yourself that gift, and create boundaries in your life. And I think you're going to do really well. I see that in you. You look like a very kind yet powerful, strong woman. And I know you're studying to be a therapist, and I think that your background was meant to be, because all of what you've gone through is going to energize you and empower you to help other people, because you will relate. And if you need a good therapist, my therapist is awesome. I'm more than happy to share her number with you. So just let us know, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz, for sharing. We know it's not always easy to share, our challenges and weaknesses and health struggles. So we are so brave, and we're so happy that you're here. And now you're going to help other people. And hopefully we were able to help a little bit, and we'll definitely be giving you some more. So happy, but thank you for sharing. We know this is a vulnerable place, and you're so kind, and we're really thankful for you being here and letting us help you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're an amazing human, Liz, and I can say that with full knowledge of who you are and what you've been through and everything. And thank you for trusting me with all this stuff and bringing it to my friends here. And I love you, buddy. I think you're gonna do great things. All right, I'm real excited for you.
Thank you.
Yes, we love you too.
Bye, Liz.
Bye.
Bye, guys.